Excuse me. There we go. There we go. What's up, everybody? HD, what's going on? Good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Gonna attempt to talk through some things, and I hope people hop on because this is one of those things that I feel like I need some help on because it's a lot. There's just a lot, and I feel like every time I do this, I'm missing something. There we go. There we go. Extra late stream. Yes. There was a Super Bowl tonight, and I am a big fan of one of the teams, and they did not win, but I had to watch the game, and so we're up later. But yeah, we're gonna talk about this for a little bit, and I'm gonna see if I can figure some stuff out, basically. So I was gonna do this tomorrow anyways, but it's one of those things that maybe I'll just talk tomorrow anyways because I don't know. There's just so many variables. So I'm gonna give it a couple minutes, wait till everybody kind of piles in. Yeah, I think this will be a fun conversation to just kind of work through because yeah, let me start at the beginning. I was gonna wait, but we can talk a little bit. So long story short, I was on a podcast yesterday with Yokai Theater, and we had a 3v3 discussion with Caravans, and we talked about attacker risk versus defender risk if attackers are benefited too much. And I did a video kind of talking about it, and I went into detail trying to prove a very specific point in the video because a lot of these details, there's just so much nuance to the entire conversation that show it. Like the last video I did that came out on Friday, all I was trying to do with that video is show that even in the worst case scenario where attackers are attacking everywhere and they're just dominating and they're winning because everybody is incentivized to attack, even in that situation with the parameters given, as long as the return on investment is there, people that will get resources will still run caravans. Sure, I mean, if attackers are attacking that much, maybe it's more profitable. But the thing with the system also is you're incentivized to work on artisan crafting in Ashes of Creation. You're incentivized to try and work towards these things in harvesting, refining, whatever you want to do. And so these resources will be inherently valuable. And so from that perspective, when you inevitably get these resources, you only have one of two options, right? Like you sell them to your home node or you run caravans. And if the return on investment is high enough, you just run caravans. And so yes, attackers may yield more gold. Maybe you're more inclined to do so, and that's a good thing in that situation. But yes, if you have enough there, if you have enough incentive for people that really need to work towards these different artisan trees, they're going to do caravans because that's going to yield them the greatest return on investment for when they get those resources. We edit my thumbnail real quick. And so I'm going to do a video like a normal short talking through this, but I figured it'd be good to have a conversation as well and just like have a live stream having a longer discussion because yeah, it really warrants it. Nope, that's the wrong one. I'm just adding my thumbnail here real quick and then we'll dive into it. No. Um, where did I save that to? Sure, everything's working well. All right. Where did it go? Oh, that's what I named. Okay. I thought I named it something different. There we go. There we go. All right. We are ready to go. Okay. Close that down because we don't need to look at that anymore. I was cooking them on the yokai stream. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I thought it was a good discussion. I really did. I don't know. I was really trying to drive home the point that it really just depends on return on investment for these things, because if you collect resources, you have to run Caravan. Like, if the return on investment's good, the choice is turning them in safely for much less profit or amplifying everything. And so the thought that attackers, even if they have an advantage and they yield more ROI attacking, it doesn't mean that defenders won't be incentivized to also still run caravans. Like, it could be a dual part system. There you can have defenders looking at this and going, hey, I get a better return on investment if I run caravans, because the choice is run caravans or stay home. And then you could look at attackers and go, hey, if we win, we get this, and this is like a way better use of our time. I don't think it's that clear, and that's why I want to discuss this. I wanted to have this video because nobody's done this. Even I haven't done this because there's so many variables. There's so many variables to talk about here, and I want to try to go into as many as possible. And I figured if people are on stream, you guys can correct me where I'm wrong, and maybe point out some things that I'm missing. And that's the big thing, is if I'm missing something, then you guys can help me out. Okay, so where do we start? How do we start this conversation? So I did two videos last week talking about this, and I talked mostly about how defenders will be incentivized as long as this happens. And the main point I want to drive home when I'm starting this is, I think you have to separate both. Like you have people saying, hey, attackers are way more incentivized to attack because of this, and this reason. And possibly, like, it really depends on how the system's going to be laid out. And I tried to show that in the video that I did on Friday, where the only reason people wouldn't run caravans is if they're not incentivized to do so. So if they don't have the return on investment that they could possibly get, they're not going to run them. But as long as they have that, people are going to progress, because every single tree, there's so many different artists in crafting that are integral to this game for progression, that demand having specific types of resources. And so you look at that, and you look at mayoral caravans, as long as the incentive and the ROI is there, people will be incentivized to spread these things out, and go get these resources. And so I think you have to separate defender ROI and what's more valuable, because your choice as a defender is to either send them or not send them. It's very linear, I guess. Like, you either do it or you don't, and then your choices are right there. And if your ROI is there, then you do one thing, and if it's not, then you do the other thing. Attackers, it's a lot more nuanced. It's way more nuanced, because we don't have as much information on what's going on. Like, I've brought up a bunch of hypotheticals that I've experienced in other games. I've personally experienced that if you beat on people long enough, they inevitably work together to try to take you down. That's been my experience in playing games like this. Like, inevitably people will say, hey, I hate that group. Yeah, I hate that group too. Okay, maybe we should work together and do something about it. Like, that's what I've always seen. And so I'm not saying that that's going to happen in this game, but like, because we don't know exactly for sure because it's not happening yet, but I would be very confident in saying that's exactly what's going to happen. The second thing is we haven't heard overall wagons. Sorry, let me. Okay, we're gonna start at the beginning. Trying to figure out the best way to say this. I'm sorry, guys. There's so many things we don't know. When you look at it and you see it and you see, like, they've said in the past that personal inventory is hypothetically a value of 1. If you mule things, that's a value of 10. So it's 10 inventories. And then if you run your caravan is supposed to be 100 times your inventory. That's what they've said in the past. It hasn't been confirmed in a while. And so that's why we don't know if this is true. We don't know how much value these crates hold. And so that's part of the issue that's happening with this discussion is we don't know how much these hold. And so it's tough to, I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about, but there we go. But yeah, I mean, things very well could have changed, but we see them attacking this caravan and we see all of these. Let me pause it right here. You see all of these different crates. We have on the screen right now, when we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Is that 13 crates? 12 or 13. I think targeting out groups will 100% happen, especially when money and resources involved. Absolutely. I know, I completely agree. And I think attackers should have incentive. I want to just kind of break down how much incentive attackers will have. And so that's what we're going to try and do in this video. So I am counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So one of the things that I got from the live stream that I guess I didn't realize at the time is when you destroy these caravans, you lose half the resources off the pop, or like right off the beginning. And so I honestly I guess I missed that. I guess my PvP brain was so excited about everything else that I missed that aspect. But yeah, so in the hypothetical example of the video I did on Friday, where you turn in resources at a node, you get 5,000 gold. Immediately when attackers attack this specific caravan, the value goes down to 2,500. And so you're already losing. It's a resource dump right off the top. The other thing to take into account, and this is a working theory, and if you guys disagree with me, please chime in. Please chime in on this. I want to go on the very extreme example where it is extremely profitable for attackers to attack. There's a lot of attackers attacking. They're winning way more often than defenders. That's the biggest complaint right now. And so we're trying to look at that specific scenario. We're looking at a very hyper specific situation. There's so many variables that if we branch off too much, then it's not worth talking about. And so I want to show you guys that, hey, maybe attacker ROI isn't as high as we think it is because of these variables. It's just stuff to take into account. That's basically what this video is. And so right off the bat, half the resources are gone. The other thing to take into account is in the video I did on Friday, and I recommend you guys go and check it out if you're following this as well. But in the video I did on Friday, it was talking about 15 players working together to collect resources to go on these caravan runs, right? So you have your 15 players. And so these 15 players are going to go on caravan runs. They're going to take things out. And if you're losing 80% of the time with 15 players, what does that kind of mean mathematically? Like what are you running across? And so I wanted to kind of explain this as well. Aren't you glad the red team won this? So anyways, with caravans, so what I'm trying to talk about here is you have your 15 players, right? You have your 15 defenders, and then you also have your just absolute unit of a caravan that has ridiculous amounts of health, and it also has healing aspects, it also has propulsion aspects, it also has a battering ram capability, it has defensive capabilities. And so if we go, I'm gonna pull up the caravan. So if we show this little clip right here. Okay, so this is the point where they're all jumping on Chibi, right? And so Chibi's jumping around trying to stay alive. and they inevitably get her, and then they show them attacking the caravan. Look how long it takes this caravan to get destroyed. Like just as an example. So it takes them a very long time to kill this caravan because the caravan is so bulky. Now, they're trying to destroy the caravan. They got somebody in there already. Look at how long it takes this health bar to go down. If you were a 16-person caravan running across this many people, you wouldn't just stop in the middle of the road. Like, you're not just stopping. This is obviously staged. They're standing there to allow the show to go on and everything. This thing is going to be a moving, walking juggernaut. And so this is going to be very tough to deal with. We've also seen that, like I said, it has heal over time aspects. We don't know how powerful those heals are, but on the first live stream, they were very, very powerful. They were very powerful. And so when you look at this, if we compare numbers and everything, I just wanted to briefly show that, and we'll go back to some math here because yeah, I'm just gonna make a fool of myself as much as possible. But if you have 15 defenders, like random assortment of 15 defenders across like random players, right? So let's say you pluck 15 players from Vera, and then you have them face off against 15 other random players from Vera, right? Half the time, one side is going to win, half the time the other side's going to win, because that's just how it works. So if you have 15 random players versus 15 random players, it's going to be a 50-50 split. So you'll have a 50% win rate roughly with 15 defenders facing 15 attackers. This is without the caravan in place. The minute you start adding more attackers or more defenders, the win rate for either one goes up. And so this is, I just want to provide a rough example from my experience. But if you have 15 defenders and you all of a sudden added, like, and you're dealing with 20 attackers, you can see that the defender's win rate will obviously go down. And we don't know exactly how much in this game. We don't know what the amplifiers will be, but I would say that they would probably win like 40% of the time. Like, you add 30% more people, you probably win, another 10 to 15% of the time. If you add like half the people, if you say like instead of 20 attackers, and guys, it's just rough numbers. It's just from my experience with other games. We don't know how this game is going to work. I want to be clear with that. But let's say it's like 15 defenders versus 23 attackers. You get in this situation where if they have like 50% more players and they're randomized, you have a 75% win rate. And so the point is if we're looking at a scenario where defenders are losing way more often than attackers, as a whole across all of Vera, the point is they're probably facing a lot more people. And this is before the caravan comes into play. So to take out the caravan that can heal players and can heal other people, you probably need more than 23 attackers. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like, everybody's saying like, hey, attackers are incentivized to attack. They're going to go out there. They're going to go out and like attack as many caravans as possible. You're not going to win many caravan runs. And I tried to show, even if like you lose 80% of the time, you can break even on an ROI run. I'm trying to get to the point to where attackers are winning 80% of the time. And so if you guys disagree with any of these points of views, let me know. Niners got robbed. Okay, on the Ashes talk. It was a good game. It was a good game. I'm happy for Nice. I'm just not that happy for Nice. That's all I'm saying. He said he wanted PvE servers yesterday. That's way more annoying than anything. I'm going to clip that and I'm going to abuse the shit out of it. But yes. But yeah, if you guys think I'm wrong with any of this, I want to shoot on the underside for this discussion. And that's why I'm bringing this up. But if we can roughly accept that if you have like over half the amount of attackers than the defenders, you're going to win a lot. And I'm just basically saying like random attackers and defenders, you win 75% of the time. If all of a sudden you have 15 defenders plus a ridiculous caravan, and then you face that off versus attackers, you're going to need a lot more than 23, because like I said, caravan also has capabilities attached to it. So you have these capabilities of healing other allies in the area. You also have a propulsion system that can, I think, run over people. You can also knock people out of the area. Like, it has a lot of defensive capabilities. So I would contest, if you want to win 80% of the time, and we don't know for sure. It's just what we've seen so far. So this is just me guerrilla mathing everything. I think average players, like if you want 80% of wins to go to attackers in this situation, you're going to need about 30 attackers. I think you need about double the attackers to compensate for the defenders and the caravan to win 80% of the time. And this is just a very rough explanation. And so it could be less, it could be more. This is why these variables are tough, because like we could have already gotten here and you guys are like, hey, I disagree with you, right? Like I disagree with your point of view. And I get that. So as a defender, and you're running this, what we also found out is I was, thanks to Galwood, I was linked to this on my in my Discord, or Mine and Ice's Discord, talking about caravans. But 3 months ago, when they did the original Caravan Discord, they actually showed the return on investment for attackers and defenders. And so I'll pull that up here real quick. I'm pretty sure I pinned it. Yeah. And so Rive actually posted this as well on his. I want to, call it out where I should. How do I zoom out on this? There we go. There we go. So it's not zoomed out enough for you guys, but this is the ROI that they showed on the Caravan live stream. So if you go to Winstead and you drop off this salt cured meat shipment, you get 1 gold and you get this 53 of like silver probably. If you go to Miralith, which was like a 20 to 30 minute caravan ride, it's tough to see there, but it's an 8x return. So you get an 8x return on driving 20 to 30 minutes. Everburn Scented Candles, it was a little over a 6x. You go to 25. So defenders are PvE players, attackers are PvPers. 15 versus 15, like go to the attackers every time. I understand that perspective, and I think that's how. Okay, so Will, I get that perspective. I just disagree, because I think when you're working in a node, people working in the node will be attackers or defenders. And so if you're trying to successfully send out mayoral caravans, for instance, to grow your node to where you have better armor and stuff, your best attackers will send out the best mayoral nodes. And so I want to say that I don't think that that's always the case. I think a lot of people are painting like attackers as PvPers and bullies, and they're going to constantly like nuke people and tear them down to pieces and stuff like that. And yes, PvPers will be a lot more inclined to attack. But I was talking to people on the podcast yesterday that they were saying, hey, I'm a PvE player. I don't plan on like partaking in the system, but if I did, I'd be the attacker, because they believe that this is tilted so heavily in that direction. And so yes. And so it's going to come down to what the incentives are. And so I'm trying to break down the incentives to see like what is actually better. I thank you for commenting, because yes, I'm not sure, but I would say, like, I'm just talking random assortments of players. We can talk about potential variability later of who's more experienced and who isn't, but that's another great variable that's brought into this conversation that I haven't even talked about yet. So thank you. It's not always that way. This goes back to high. Yeah. So there's so many variables, but I wanted to show, like, I did a 5x example over an hour run, and we're showing 6 to 8. We're showing like a 6 to 8x. But yeah, I'm going to attempt to dive into that also, hopefully on here, but it's so tough. And the thing is like on a YouTube video, like 20-minute videos are already pretty long. They're already way longer on the video side. And I'm going to like the limit of like where people will shut off, and I'm still not covering so many things. And I have people commented, they're like, hey, yeah, you're just a PvPer. You have this incentive and you're trying to hide the fact that this is happening. And it's like, no, if I attempt to discuss this, it's going to take me an hour. It's going to probably take me 2 hours. And so trying to break this down into a condensed formula is really tough. But yeah, so this is just talking about like the example I'm showing here, Will, and everybody else. This is just randomized players. It's not PvPers. It's not experience. It's not anything like that. It's just, hey, even PvEers are saying that right now, the way the system is, they're going to attack. So if everybody believes that they're going to attack more than defend, then I think we can say that it's all attacker. Like we can randomize everybody. We don't have to skew the benefits to the attackers or defenders. But yeah, for an 80% win rate, I think you're going to need roughly double the Caravan numbers. I think this is what you need to win 80% of the time. And so you could get less. We could argue and say 25 or whatever. We can make some adjustments, but whatever. So if we can accept 30, if you guys are cool with it, if not, we can do less. I haven't done this yet. This is why I'm doing this all in real time right now. That's why I'm stuttering and like seeing if anybody wants to rebuttal me and everything like that. Cause this is just a conversation on like what win rates are. So if we have 30 attackers, we can go into two different discussions here, but the 30 attackers are yielding a 2,500 gold win rate in this situation. So the 15 defenders, they're working towards their 5,000. If the attackers take it over and they go to the exact same spot and drop off in the exact same spot for whatever reason, we're keeping it. That's another variable to discuss that we're not going to bring up here. But yeah, if they then ship the caravan and then they win, they automatically lose half the resources on destroying the caravan and loading up whatever's left. And so you have 30 attackers vying for 2,500 gold. And so it's, as you can see, it's double the attackers vying over half the gold. So you see the ROI already going down in this situation. We don't know what it is yet. And so we'll get into that in a minute. But Phantom brought up a great point. And so shout out to everybody that was on the podcast yesterday. If you guys haven't checked it out, if you want to check it out, I'll provide a link. But yeah, it was with Yokai Theater. It was a good discussion. Phantom brought up the fact that like, hey, if I'm out in the woods and I'm chopping down trees, if I'm chopping down trees and I see a caravan getting attacked and like, you know, you see 20 attackers attacking 15 defenders and it looks like they're winning, you can jump in and you can partake in the caravan run and you're going to try and get your loot. Ash, Mick, what's up, dude? So you can jump in and you can partake in the caravan attack and you can get your own loot. And then another point he brought up was, hey, there's no guarantee that the guild, like the 20 people, they're probably part of the guild, they're working to fight the caravan. There's no guarantee that they're going to split the gold equally among everybody. And so you're going to have like solo potential or smaller groups vying for taking some stuff out of the caravans. And this is where it gets really confusing. And so I'm going to break it down a little bit more, but let me go back over here. So you see this video that we have right now, like they just destroyed the caravan. You have all these people in this area. They all partook in it. You're going to have some people that aren't allied with the group. They just were like, hey, I'm going to participate. And now I'm going to take out this caravan, right? They don't know if they're going to get paid off. And so the issue that they're going to have is, hey, do I help escort this caravan to the neighboring node to drop it off to get my return on investment? Or do I crack a crate right here and take whatever I can and line my pockets? And I think we can all agree that if we don't know that we're getting a return on investment because we don't know those players, I think we can all agree that random puggies will just crack a crate and take whatever they can because that ensures that they get something, right? And so this is where it gets tough. And so if, let's say we have in the 30 attacker situation, let's say 20, we'll say 25 of them. Let's say 25 of them are guild members and they think that they could take on the 15. And then you have 5 random puggies come in and they're just, you know, like, hey, I'm along for the ride. So you have 5 people that are going to crack crates. And so what happens when they crack crates is if this works out the way that they say it's going to, and this is where it's tough. This is where it's tough to accept. But if you have your pocketed inventory and then you have your mule, which they say is 10x, and then I think they said a crate on a caravan is 100x. And I very well could be wrong in this situation, and they might make adjustments, but I want to just go off whatever the last numbers were. But if you crack a crate and you pull stuff out of it, what they're saying is I think you can only take 1% of one crate if you crack one in your inventory. If you have a mule with you, you can take 10%. I think that's how that works. And we don't know for sure. I'm just trying to provide an example. Okay. And so this is once again like, hey, I don't want to provide misinformation, but but at least on a live stream, I can kind of show you why um, this is so messy to deal with. Defenders come when they realize that the node progression system is dependent on the caravans. Exactly, Skinny. Well said. They did mention an escrow system that pays evenly across all defenders, whether successful or not. Oh, did they? Okay, I wasn't sure if they were going to do that or not. And so, yeah, if they have an escrow system for defenders, so you would hope that they would do the same thing for attackers as well. Because if they don't, and it's fine if they don't, but you're going to have this decision, like I said, where you're going to have random pickup group players. And I don't mean this in an insulting way, guy. It's like, I shouldn't say puggies, but it's just, I like saying puggies. But you're going to have random players coming in and they're going to just line their pockets. And so if they crack 5 crates and they can only take 1% of each, like we showed in that video, if your inventory, and this is a bunch of ifs, I'm just trying to provide an example, but if your inventory is 1/10 of a mule, and if the mule is 1/10 of a crate that's on a caravan, like a large crate, you're only taking 1% of the resources. And so if you crack a crate, you're only taking 1% of the resources in 1 crate. That's how I perceive it, and I very well could be wrong. But yeah, I think when we counted earlier, I think I said I counted like 11 crates. It might be 12 or 13, but we'll say 11. So you have 2,500 gold split among 11 crates. And so if we go in here, you have 227 gold per crate, roughly. And then if you can only take 100% of it, or 1% of this overall value, so if we have a mule, we can take 22.7 gold worth from the mule. If we take it from our inventory, we can only take 2.2 gold. And so there's, like I said, I was going to, and I could be wrong. And this is why I haven't done a video on this yet. This is why it's hard to do a video, because we don't have this information yet. And so if you have pug groups walking around attacking people and cracking crates, and they're taking stuff to fill their inventory, the best case scenario that they're going to get is like roughly 23 gold in this situation. Like if they deposit, they're going to get like 23 gold. If they just line their pockets with what is the most expensive, they're going to get 2.3 gold. The attackers must make a caravan in order to profit. Yeah. And so I think the vast majority of people will. Like, I think the guild will try to fight for it, but I think the 5 players, and I do agree with this. I think if you randomly stumble across a caravan and you partake, you're probably not going to wait for a better ROI. I think what you're going to try and do is you're going to just take a crack a crate. Like, at that point, you better have a mule with you, right? Like, because then you're taking stuff. But the point is if you're just a random person attacking a crate in this specific situation, you're getting next to nothing. And yeah, sure, it's a random occurrence. You participated late in the game, and you're getting rewarded exactly for participating late in the game and not being prepared to take stuff. You can only take like 1% of 1 crate. You may only get 1%, but the caravan loses a lot more. Absolutely. And so, yeah, and I'm trying to separate attackers and defenders. I've talked a lot about defenders. I haven't talked about attackers yet. And so I do agree. And there's so much nuance. There's so much to talk about. And this is the point I'm trying to bring up is just because you're a random person enjoying the world doesn't mean you're going to potentially take on this, because it's not necessarily yielding you a very high ROI. 2.2 gold is, in this specific situation, is nothing. But let's say that it's all 30 members. Let's say it's all 30 members and they're all working together, and you have 0 cracked crates, right? So that means that they split the gold of this 2,500. Because we can admit that the caravan costs of investing into both is equal. But in this situation, they're getting 83.3 gold per person. So their overall ROI, if a 30-person guild attacks 15 defenders in a caravan, they're getting 83.3 gold off of depositing in the same spot. Once again, a bunch of other nuance. I'm just trying to show you guys like, hey, like, it's not as clear as you think it is. If you think you're going to win 80% of the time because everybody's attacking, you're winning that much because you have way more people. And because you have way more people and you're getting way less gold, your overall value is spread a lot more thin. And so the question is this 83.3 gold any good? Like, is this good? And so the video I did on Friday, what I showed was defenders were getting 33.3 gold on a 60%. They were winning 60% of the time, right? So they were getting 33.33 gold. Farmers were also getting 33.33 gold per hour. It's easier to calculate for defenders. And in this situation, attackers get 83.33 gold. And so this is what it's going to come down to. And this is where there's even more variables coming into play in this situation, is how long did it take the attackers to walk around and hunt to find this caravan to then take it and then drop it off? And so the question is were they out there for a while? Did they just stumble across it? Were they farming bosses and then all of a sudden a caravan stumbled across them and they're like, hey, let's sack this? Or were they like, hey, caravans are very profitable. We're going to be out here. We're going to hunt for hours. We're going to spread our group out as much as possible to try and scout for caravans in the area. And then we're going to attack. And that's the question that is going to have to be answered when we get into Alpha 2. Because if it takes the attackers spread out multiple hours to do so, to find one of these caravans, this profit cuts in half immediately. And so you go from 83.3 to like 41 point whatever. If it takes 3 hours or 4 hours to attempt to find a caravan, it's going to be even less. And so it all depends on the world. Well, what do we know about the world right now? The world of Vera is 2,400 square kilometers. 1,200. I said 2,400. I'm sorry, guys. As an example, New Worlds is about 40 kilometers from what I found on Google, which is obviously reputable. It's on the internet. Like we know these things. And so the point that I brought up yesterday also is you're going to have about 3 times the population on Ashes of Creation. They're talking about 10,000-ish players. New World has about 3,000. So roughly three times the players. And then you're also going to have 30 times the world size. And so what this means, and you guys can do this as well, the population density for Ashes, you're going to have 1/10 of the population density of New World. So that means anywhere you go into the world, like when you walk around New World on a fully popped server, you're going to see 1/10 of the people that you would see in New World. Now, for those of you guys that don't play New World, I understand. I did a video talking about world size on Ashes a few months ago. And what I tried to show on that video was I went from the most southern end of the map on a horse and I just rode up the roads to the most northern end. And I want to say it took me like 42 minutes. And I wanted to show how big the world is. I think I saw 5 players. I think I saw 5 total players that were traveling in the exact same area that I was. And so and obviously people will be more condensed around nodes and everything. I totally get that. That's where nodes are dropping from and all these things. But you're not just going to have people randomly in the world that often at a very high rate is my point. And so you're going to have to travel a long ways. There's no fast travel in Ashes of Creation until you get your scientific nodes up and running. And so even then it's from one point to one point. You're not going to be able to call in a guild of a ton of people saying, hey, there's a caravan over here. They're going to have to be able to be within riding distance in a fast enough time to get to that situation. And so when you look at the population density of the world of Vera, it could take a long time to see or find these things. It very well could. And so you're going to have some help around nodes. But the thing is if you're sacking caravans from a specific node, any smart mayor or good mayor is going to have a kill on sight order for anybody that's attacking their node. So if you show up in that area and they see you, they're going to try to kill you. As node defenders, if you're a node or if you're a caravan runner and you have 15 people and you know you can take on 20 to 25 people like I showed in this example, you send out your scouts before you send out your caravans, and you go out in the area and you basically say, hey, ride out in all these other directions, see if there's anybody large enough that could take us on in a quick enough time to get this caravan run off. And if there isn't, you send your caravans. But if you go out there and there's a 50-man group running around and they're specifically looking for caravans, you just don't send them. You don't send the caravans. So like, why would you send in the people that you can lose to and then lose literally everything? Like, that's not going to happen. And so these are points I try to bring up in conversation on a few videos yesterday, a few days ago, but it's just like defenders have the advantage of they know when they're sending. They know when they're going to group up. They know when they're going to send. They know how many people they have. They're coordinated. And they also have a caravan. So they have all these bonuses. The attackers, it could be profitable to do so, but they basically have to try to get in the same area with enough people in enough time to do this. And so if you're a defender on a caravan run and you're trying to defend against people and you know that like basically you can take on X amount of people, you drive, like we've all played large world, well, most of us have played like big open world PvP games. We know guilds. Like we eventually know people in our area that are around. If we don't know specific people or we don't know specific groups of players, we basically assume that they're hostile, right? Or they're just probably not working for us. We're going to know who's in our node. Basically anybody that's not in our node, we're going to be working against. And so from that perspective, if you send your groups of players out, and let's see if I can I'm going to pull this up on the side here. Let's see if they have it. Let's pull up the world map. We haven't seen the systems working together in a vacuum before Alpha 2. What they showed us is very attacker friendly. Absolutely. Yeah, it is very attacker friendly. And it should be. Like, you want to incentivize both sides to do so. The ROI for defenders is also very friendly because, yeah, you should be running these things. And so this is probably a bad example, but let's... So you have this map, right? And so let's say, you know, you're here and you got to get here. And basically you have your zones of where people can reach you, right? So you know that if you're trying to get from here to here, people on horseback, you got a bunch of mountains here, though I'm just pretending there's 2 nodes in this area. Basically, you just have to scout this area along the mountains and you scout along here. And you go around, you look for, you basically look for big groups that could potentially intercept you. Because if somebody's in here and they see they're scouting, basically with horses, and this is just an idea, you send out scouts to try to stop people from intercepting, and you could send out in this area and then you pack up and you go right away, and you have a 20 to 30 minute window to get there as quickly as possible. Even with 30 people in a 15v30, if they get there too late, you could still win. Like, you can still win in those situations because you're just so close, and you can just say full send caravan to other node, like just get there and we'll hold them off. But yes, that's what we talk about with like an 80% win rate. And so you're going to have people, and the reason I'm censoring this off is there's like big mountains here, guys. It's tough to see, but like, I don't know if these are going to be passable mountains. If they're not, then obviously you go higher, but whatever. The point is you could scout out in advance as a defender. You can pick and choose your times wisely, and you can kind of see like each average node will have like 100 to 115-ish people. That's how it's set up. Like 85 nodes, 10,000 people. It's like 117 people per node. You get an idea who's part of your node really quickly when the numbers are that small and you're playing every day. And so people that aren't involved, that are in other groups in the area, they're probably not very friendly. And so you just avoid the large groups that are working in this situation. And so that's how do I clear that again? There we go. So that's how we're looking at things. Like, yes, does it incentivize the attacker? Absolutely. You guys are absolutely right. the attackers, they're not investing the same amount of hours as defenders are, spending hours and times and days. I'm using the same example that I used on Friday though, but they get half the resources, and at this very high win rate where attackers are winning way more than the defenders, they also have more people. And so you see in this situation, like I showed you, this is 83.33 gold. And so it's all going to depend on like how big the world is and how spaced out people are. But I think it's going to be very rare. Like if you do these things smart, like very wisely, with how wide the game is with how big the game is, with how many different routes you could go on, it could take the attackers an hour. It could take them 2 hours. It could take them 3 hours, 4 hours to find a caravan. Like if a bunch of people are in the area, smart caravan runners are not going to run caravans at that point in the time. Like dumb ones are. Like you're going to have not very good players. And obviously in that situation, attackers are going to benefit way more than defenders. They're going to go club them, and they're going to teach them a lesson about when and where to send caravans. Primetime higher server population could equal caravans earning more gold. 3 a.m. caravan defenders may have it easy if only sleep deprived. Yeah, that's a very good point, Will. That's a very, very good point. And so, yeah, I wanted to show this example because there's so many different things that really come into play here. But like, just because attackers time, their overall gold per hour for attackers is their time spent looking for caravans. And this is off screen because, yeah. So that's part of it. It's their time spent looking for caravans. Plus, it's the resources they get. So the return that they get on what they're trying to do. And so when you already are at a 50% loss at best, when you take resources, and in this situation, you have double the attackers, you don't have to have many hours invested in looking for caravans to where all of a sudden the ROI is less than defending. And so in this specific example, if we look at it, so what did I say? 83.33. Let's divide it by 3 here. So yeah. So once the attackers get to a situation to where they've been looking for a caravan for 3 hours, or it takes them 3 total hours to kill a caravan, to look for it, coordinate an attack, take it over, launch their own caravan, and then get it safely to another area. If that takes 3 hours in this situation for 30 attackers all working together, they're going to yield less gold than if a defender has a 60% win rate. If that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense to you guys, like, let me know, and I can go a little bit further into detail. But this is where it's going to come into play. The map is huge. Defenders have some advantages as well on when and where to launch these things. They know basically like how long it's going to take some people to get into the area. They're going to pick and choose their times wisely. And because you can pick and choose your times wisely because you know who's in your node and who really isn't, you then know who's going to attack. And especially as like the node system goes on and on, you're going to know a lot more about who's friendly and who's not, right? You're going to know more and more as this goes on. And so in some areas, like, you're going to have huge win rates. Like it's very possible. And I don't want to paint this. Like, I think it's going to depend. Like there will be times like maybe up in this corner right here, there's some really, really bad players. And they're just, they're in the northwest corner of the map. They've been sending out caravans. They're sending out a shit ton of resources with 1 or 2 defenders. This becomes a farmer's paradise. So everybody flocks up here and they reap the rewards, and attacker ROI is through the roof, right? Very well could be possible. Then you get over here, hypothetically, it's a little bit more in the central. They're like, people have been contesting. Caravan runners over here have been a lot smarter. They know like, hey, we have 15 people in the area that are hostile. We're sending 20 people. We're not worried about 15 people. We have 20 plus we have a caravan. You're going to need to send 40 to deal with us. 15 doesn't matter. We're going to send this. We're going to bulk send our caravan shipments, and we're going to yield more profit down here. You could see situations to where potentially defenders look at this and they go, hey, we're just going to get smarter. But you're going to reach an equilibrium at points in time where defenders smarten up and attackers go, hey, they're sending 40 people down here. If we want to try and fight this, we're going to need to get better. We're going to need to send more people. And we're just going to need to be better at getting attackers in these situations. One has to wonder what aspects your caravan ranking affects. Yes, absolutely. Attackers could just loot the boxes for less monetary gain, but it's still profit. Yeah. So Max, I talked about that also earlier. Here, let me show you what I did, and I very well could be wrong. We don't know this, and so these are just variables up for discussion. That's why I'm having the live stream, so you guys can kind of point out where I'm wrong. But Intrepid has said in the past that your inventory is like, let's say your inventory is worth 1 inventory. Your mule is 10 times your inventory. And then they said a crate on the Caravan, the large crate, is 10 times that of a mule. And so if you crack a crate, you can only get 1%. If this is true, if this still stands true, and it very well could not be, we don't know for sure. And so I don't want to be like, hey, I'm right, you're wrong, or anything like that. Like they haven't confirmed this in a while, so we don't know. But if that's true, where your personal inventory is only 1% of 1 crate, you only get 1%. And so in that situation, where you're getting 1% of 1 crate, the example that I showed was when they cracked the crates on the video, or when they showed the crates on the video, let me go back to it. You had all these boxes on the ground after destroying the Caravan. And I want to say it was like 11. I think I said it was roughly 11. And so you lose half the stuff that you have. And so you have 2,500. Oh, my calculator's not here. So in the situation that I brought up on the video, where if you turn it into the same node, you make 5,000. The minute the attackers attack the node, they take half the resources. And so you go from 5,000 to 2,500. If you divide it by 11 boxes, that means each one is 227 gold per box. If you only get 1%, you only get 2.27 gold. And so yes, it's free gold, but it's very meager free gold. And I don't know if this is true. I don't know. We like this is just like people have said it on the live stream, and then somebody said, yes, this has been unconfirmed in the wiki because they haven't said this for a while. So I don't know, but I wanted to use this as an example. Like if you can only get 1% of 1 crate in your inventory, and you could, like, even in the other situation where if you have a mule, you can get 22.7 gold by cracking a crate and taking stuff. And the example I showed on Friday, your ROI was 33 what did I say? It's 33.3 with a 60% win rate. And so in this situation, if you're just a random pickup group guy, even with a mule, you're not incentivized to attack so much as you are to defend. Like I'm as a defender in this situation, if you have a mule, if this is all true, and it very well could not be, you're way more incentivized to be a defender in this situation than to be an attacker. You're making more gold as a defender than an attacker. And so I think it's not as clear. But yeah, what I also talked about later was, if you have, and the example that I showed was 30 attackers for an 80% win rate. If you divide 30 attackers divided by 2,500, your overall gold is 83.3. And so each person gets 83.33 gold, and that's great. Like if you find that in the first hour, your win rate goes through the roof. It's way higher to be an attacker than a defender. But the question that comes into account is player-driven defenses. If you're a defender of 15-person caravan, and you know it's going to take 30 attackers to crush you. If you do scouts, like I showed, if you scout an area and you see 30 people that can close the distance on your area, you're not going to send the caravan. You're just not. You're going to wait. You're going to wait till they get bored. And so all those hours that attackers are waiting for you to send something that doesn't exist, those are hours wasted that they could be spent doing something else. And so we don't know what that number is. I'm not claiming to know. I'm not claiming to know that attackers are going to find these things right away. This map is huge. This map is 30 times the size of New World's map. And New World's map, with the population they have, the population density is very thin. It looked like Steven took all the gems, but the price was down. Okay. Well, yeah, and that's the other discussion on cracked crates. Don't you lose X% when you crack a crate as well? Like, we haven't even gotten into that point yet. And I don't know if I wanted to get into that point in this video, because I haven't gone back and looked at how much they lose. I think somebody said when you crack a crate, you lose 75% of what's in the crate. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't want to spread misinformation. But if somebody cracks the crate, I want to say 75% of it disappears. But yeah, so you have these situations to where if you have a full guild of 30 people, and you're winning all these times because it's just way more if it's way more beneficial to attack to be an attacker and you're winning like at a very high rate, you're going to have just drastically larger, more attackers than defenders. If you're winning that much, you have more people. He definitely said most of it, so around there. Okay. So we haven't even gotten into that discussion yet. So, and yeah, I don't have exact numbers. This is why I'm like, hey, like it could be this, and this is just rough ideas. And so I'm trying to show that like this attacker ROI that everybody's talking about, that's like very valuable. It's potentially not as valuable as people think. And so this is what we're kind of breaking out. So the initial discussion was 30 people all working together in a guild, and they get 83.33 gold per person. Okay. So they get, and so your ROI is then going to depend on how many hours you spent farming these things. And so if it takes you 3 hours to find, farm, collect a caravan, and then return it back, and for the ROI that we're talking about, the minute you get to 3 hours, you're better off doing something else. And so the number that I showed was, it was 27.77, which is lower than the 33.3. And so in these situations where if it's taking you this long to find these things, you're better off defending. You're going to make more gold defending than you are attacking. But we don't know what that number is. All we know is the map is freaking huge. The defenders of the caravan aren't just going to send stuff out if they don't think that they can win. The minute those numbers happen, they're just going to stay home, and they're going to be like, hey, we're not sending out caravans today. There's a 100-man group out there. Let's just go farm resources. And you wait till they get bored. You wait that day. They can sit out there for 4 or 5 hours. That's fine. It's denting into their ROI. You keep farming. The minute they get bored and then they leave, then you send your caravans. Because yeah, there's no incentive to send it the same time every single day. Attackers are going to have to hunt for these things. They're going to have to spend time looking for these things. And some groups will be better than others. And so that's where the variability comes into play. But let's do one more example, like one more very rough example. So this is the formula that we have so far. This is the attacker ROI. If we have the example I said before, where you have like 25 guild members, right? They go over, they're attacking a caravan, and it looks like they're winning. And then you have 5 opportunistic, I can't spell right now, 5 opportunistic pickup group people. The pickup group people, they don't know if they're going to get paid by the guild members. They don't know for sure. They're not sure if they're going to get anything. They don't know if the guild is going to take everything for themselves and say, hey, you guys just piled on at the end. Like, why do you get a reward? No, you're not going to get anything. They don't know. And so then the prisoner's dilemma comes into play for 5 different players. And so what they're going to do is they're going to crack crates. I think I would crack crates. Would any of you not crack crates in this situation? Please tell me if you wouldn't. I really want to know. But I think everybody in this situation where, if you don't know if you're going to get something, you would absolutely crack a crate. And so there's 11 crates. If you crack 5 of them, you get 6 full crates. You have 6 full crates. And then you have 5 crates that are roughly like 25% of their original value. Honestly, caravan hunters will be a huge thing. You will learn of them from a node, rumors, espionage, or by accident. Yeah, and that's why we're having this conversation, because everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm absolutely going to attack. But let's have like it's good to like talk about these numbers, because I'll be honest, guys, I want to participate on both sides. Like, I'm going to be an equal opportunity. Like, this is one of my favorite systems that I'm excited about. That's why I'm doing a podcast talking about this. But I want to be an attacker, and I also want to be a defender. I want to do whatever gives me the best fight and also gives me the best ROI. And if I'm if I'm a good player and I know that defending in these situations yields me more gold, I want to defend. I don't want to do what everybody else is doing. I want to do what gives me the most amount of gold, because that's how I'm going to get ahead. In this game, it's where you're not gaining on people is where you're falling behind, if that makes sense. And if you're here to play casually, that's fine. I'm not saying you can't or anything like that. But if you're interested in progressing and like working and competing with other people, this is how you have to look at these things. The gold that you aren't making in a similar situation is gold that other people have that they can go towards their gear, improving things and improving their node faster and getting stuff faster than you. I wouldn't, if I was a pug, I might get cracked by the guild. Sure. But they can't take those resources off you. Like once they're in your inventory, they can't take those. Like if you take gems or something, I'm pretty sure you can't then take them. They can take other stuff off your inventory, like whatever you were farming, but I don't think they can take those commodity things that are in your inventory. And I could be wrong. Assuming you could get away and not risk death and thus XP debt. Yeah. Yeah, if you could get away. And yeah, that's another good point as well. But yeah. Well, we already did the discussion on 30 people not cracking crates, and it comes down to hours. Let's just say 5 people crack crates, because this is going to happen sometimes as well. So what are the numbers that I said it was? We had 2,500 gold divided by 11 crates. So you have 227.27. So times this times 6. So 1,363. We'll say 1,364. 1,364 is the gold from the 6 uncracked crates. If we say that the 5 crates are 25% of the value, we'll do 227 divided by 4. And we don't know what this number is. So like I'm talking out of my ass here. We're accepting that I'm talking out of my ass. We get 284.1. So we got 1364 plus 284 point this. So we'll add 1364 to it. So we have 1648. And now we divide this by the 25 remaining guild members, and they now have 65 gold. So in this situation, if you've been farming for 2 hours, or looking around finding a caravan for 2 hours, and you finally find it, you attack it, the hours spent looking for it, attacking, winning, summoning your own caravan, and then depositing it. If it's 2 hours or over, you then are making less than you would as a defender. In this situation. And there's so many variables. I'm not trying to say that there's not. I'm just trying to show you guys examples of what I'm talking about here. And so this is why it's so interesting to me. It's a huge freaking map. There's defenders choose when they launch these things, and the ROI on attackers is very unclear. In my opinion, it's very, very unclear. It depends on how good you are at finding these. It depends on how bad the defenders are, like how careless they are sending out resources. But yeah, in these situations, like you see that even though it doesn't take you as long, you're not going to spend as many hours farming these resources. The minute you spend a couple of hours doing these things, like specifically going on caravan ratings and stuff like this, your ROI is just tanking. And so all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, sure. Attackers are incentivized to attack, as they should. It makes the game more fun. It increases more drama. But even despite that, in this situation where attackers are winning 80% of the time and there's just attackers everywhere and there's large roaming groups, if they're spending a lot of time finding these like minimal amounts of caravans, then you're going to have these issues. And so the last thing I want to bring up in this discussion, guys, please tell me if I'm wrong, if you think I'm wrong in any of these situations. This is just obviously a hypothetical. But you have this huge world, right? And the numbers that nobody has debated me on yet is, in order to have roughly an 80% win rate versus defenders plus a caravan, you probably need double the attackers. And it could be more, it could be less, but I think it's going to be somewhere around this. If you want to win 80% of the time, you need double the attackers. So if you have a world of Vera, which we have right here, so in this entire world, in this situation, that means that we have roughly 6,666 attackers. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm writing with a mouse. And that means we have 3,000. Oh my God, that's the worst three I've ever seen. 3,333 defenders. And so it roughly, if this is how we're looking at it, and this is ignoring all other consequences of attacking nodes, like if you attack my node and you take my caravan, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to fight back. That's personally how I would react. I know not everybody would react that way immediately, but if we're looking at these situations, we're talking about 2/3 of the population spread out across 1,200 kilometers looking for caravans, right? So the last math I do, I promise, and I hopefully this all makes sense to you guys, but we have 1,200 kilometers squared. And we have 6,666 attackers. Did I do that right? So this should be one attacker every 0.18 kilometer spread out. And so these attackers are going to be drawn very thin. Like obviously you're going to have points. Like some, it's not going to be this wide. Like I'm trying to provide nuance, of course, but like if you have a node here and you have a node here and a node here and a node here and a node here and a node here, like in this type of situation, like obviously you know that people are going to go like this, you know that people are going to skirt the edge, like you basically have like 3 rough routes to get from point A to point B. Like you're not going to go here and then go like you're not going to do like one of these goofy ass things and take longer to get to a spot. Like most people are going to do the path of least resistance, but some areas will be knocked out. But if the map is designed correctly and people are spread out enough between caravan keeps, it's going to be very, very tough for large groups of people to group together to find these things and then combat them and take them down, is my point. And so the minute you start getting 30-man groups in some areas, that means there's 30-man groups in another area means there's other areas that don't have groups at all. And so you have to, in this sort of situation, you have to calculate the overall ROI of attackers and defenders. So in some areas, attackers are going to take a shit ton of gold. And in other areas, like they're just going to be non-existent and the defenders are going to reap all the rewards. Perfect. Yeah, I flipped it. I thought I did when I was looking at it. 5.5 players per square kilometer. Thank you. Thank you. I watched the Super Bowl today. I'm just telling you guys, my team didn't win. I have had a few beverages, so I messed that up. But yes, thank you. All right. I also wonder if there's just a set reward for participating and winning on either side, apart from resources themselves to incentivize randoms helping. I think there will be through the caravan system, like the progression system. I think if you win, I think there will be stuff attached to that. I just don't know how much that'll be. But yes, thank you, Will. And so that's exactly my point. And so the minute you start getting a bunch of people, like in this situation that I drew a bunch of dots for, maybe we'll make a thumbnail about this, but let's say you're this node, right? And that's terrible. I'm drawing with a mouse, I swear to God. Let's say there's like a big mega guild right here, right? So you're not going to go this way. But if there's a bunch of people here, that means that density wise, there might not be many people over here. And so then you can send 15 people on your caravan this way, and they then have to play catch up. And they might not be able to close that distance. It depends on mount speed and all these other sorts of things if they have a scout. But yeah, it's very possible that because people are so condensed here trying to fight a 15-person caravan that like you go unhindered over here. If you're in a family, which I think is the limit is 8, you'll be able to warp. So I assume guilds will have sets. Yeah. Yeah, sure. And it depends on like how big the families are and if they work together and if they're all in the same guild and those sorts of things. Like I could see that for sure. Can appreciate your numbers, but there are too many variables to consider. Where to sell is important, such as the black market versus resale from your personal market bot, but we get the general idea. Yeah. And that's why I haven't done this video yet. Like if I like this entire time of me talking about this, I'm like, yeah, these are all the examples. And this is why like when people that are they think attackers carry no risk, and they don't think that they think attacker ROI is very high. They're not going into all these different variables in detail. And so all I'm trying to say, the TLDR of what I'm trying to say here is attacker ROI could be very high. It very well could be. There's a bunch of variables that we can't quite calculate right now because we don't have the information properly. But with what we've been given, this is where the ROI starts to be lost, is my point. And so the minute you have like a 30-man group that finds something, if it takes them 3 hours to find one caravan, like farming and looking for stuff, you're better off. You're going to make more gold being a defender. If you're a 25-person group and you have 5 puggies crack 5 crates, it's going to take you 2 hours to like the minute you go over 2 hours to look, fight, recover, and then drop off these resources. It'll take you 2 hours in the same situation. And so the risk, the risk in this, and I hope this all makes sense. And the risk comes from not getting the same ROI as somebody else gets doing the exact same thing, if that makes sense. So yeah, we'll show a little bit more of this because yeah. And that's just trying to use the example that I used on Friday as like a very similar basis. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or other comments or something I missed, yeah, there's obviously so many variables. There's so many variables in this discussion. Got to be popular choke points, caravan preferred, roads for speed boost, etc. 40-ish nodes per big island. Hopefully it makes it easier if I care. Yes. No, and absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. There will be caravan run points that will be more common. They will absolutely be known. But if there are more well-known common runs as well, people can then go scout those areas, right? And they can go look around. And, you know, in this example that I showed, defenders only need to be successful like 40% of the time, or over 20% of the time, to yield more profit than turning in caravans at home, turning in resources at home, because the ROI is higher. And that was a 5x investment. What we've seen is 6 to 8x. So 6x means you only need to win 17% of the time to be more successful than if you drop off your resources. If you have an 8x, and this isn't factoring in the resource cost for caravans and caravan loss and all that, that's another variable that we don't know. But if you get an 8x overall return, you only need to be successful 12.5% of the time to have the same value as turning in at your home node. And so although, yeah, you could lose more often than not as a defender, it's still more valuable to send out resources. And as an attacker, it depends on how many you're attacking with. And it depends on how many people you're working with and how many hours it takes you to find these things. So much potential tactics and subterfuge for each side. Honestly, the system is so interesting because of how open it is and how many things. Exactly. That's why, I mean, I've talked about this for hours this week. I've talked about this a lot. And this is why it's so exciting, because we don't know what the ROI is going to be for attackers. But regardless, attacker ROI and defender ROI should be kept separate. Like, we don't have to have the same return on investment for attackers as defenders. This is just a hypothetical example of where you have a break-even point, and you're going to find some sort of equilibrium for the situation. What Intrepid is going to do is, when you look at this, the biggest thing, and this is something DA brought up on the podcast yesterday, is let me go over here. So if you sack this caravan, the amount of resources that go from it are automatically cut in half. And so once they're cut in half, this is a resource and commodity sink into the game to stop escalating of resources and commodities. And so depending on what Intrepid wants to do, you're going to find an equilibrium as a player. Okay. And so if you're an attacker and you're running a 30-man group conquering all these caravans, and you're finding these within 1 hour, you're yielding this huge profit, 83.33 gold. But just because attackers are yielding more gold doesn't mean that when you have these resources that you've been farming trees for to upgrade your artisan crafting, yes, it's more beneficial as an attacker potentially to attack in these situations in that area. But if you have these resources and you want gold off the resources you've been collecting, your choices are drop them off at home node or send them out on a caravan run. And with the proper ROI, it is always beneficial to send them out on a caravan run. And so you can have your attacker ROI and you can have your defender ROI. And people, as long as there's incentive for people to want to level artisanships and work towards these things, defenders will want to work on these things. And I think you're going to reach these types of happy mediums in these situations. It depends on what Intrepid wants to do. But in the example that I showed, where 5 random people pick this up, right? And you have 25 guild members in an area and they take this. If 25 guild members spend 2 hours doing this, they don't make as much as defenders. And so you're going to reach these ROI happy media. You're going to reach equilibriums, and is my point. And so there will be times in some areas where it's way more beneficial to be an attacker. Absolutely. But if the defenders are smart and if they're coordinated and they work well together and they time their things correctly, in those areas with the right team, it could be way more beneficial to be a defender. Like if you go out there and you see that there's 20 people that are constantly like looking in your area for caravan runs and it's 20 good players, you don't send out caravans with 15 people. You work together with your node and you say, hey, we have 20 people out here that we have to deal with. Like these 20 people are a problem. We need to send at least 20 to 25 people. If we want to be safe, like let's farm up enough resources. Let's send out like 3 or 4 caravans, right? Let's farm resources to where we can fill 3 or 4 caravans. And then we'll work with our node and we'll send 40 people at the same time. And you have this cat and mouse game among attackers and defenders in an area. The minute one group gets too predictable, the other group is easy to counter. So if people are just sending out 1 or 2 person caravans are getting farmed relentlessly, the attackers have it easy. The minute the attackers are predictable with where they're at, when they're going to be at, and how many people, the defenders can then counter that. And so you're going to see these types of ROIs fluctuate rather drastically. And so I think what they're going to do is they're going to want to incentivize attackers, because the caravan system is going to be the catalyst for wars and change in the game. Like this is going to be the biggest thing that people are going to bitch about in this game, in my opinion. Like node sieges will happen, but node sieges will happen because of what happens on caravan runs, in my opinion. And so if Intrepid really wants to like make people fight and feud and squabble and like make this a more PvP heavy game, they'll up the value. They'll make sure that defenders are always incentivized to run these caravan runs, but they'll give the freedoms to attackers like they're giving to allow them to attack. And then players in this system will then figure out that happy medium of what's more beneficial for them in those areas. If that makes sense. TLDR, we need Alpha 2 already. Yeah. What is it, 140 days from now? I think we're 140 days away. So we're getting there. we're getting there. What else is there to bring up? I don't know if there's anything else. Like there's so many other variables to discuss, obviously. We haven't talked about spies. We haven't talked about counter spies. We haven't talked about anything like that. But yeah, the biggest point is you're going to have these break-even points for attackers and defenders. And just because it's easy, like you farm and you like see something, if they do the caravan loot amount correctly, just filling your pockets and leaving might not give you much at all. Like you might not get a ton. If attackers start winning 90% of the time, I'm only transporting dragon poo. Well, yeah, and that's the other interesting thing, right? So if attackers are winning 90% of the time, and you're a good defender and you're getting these 8x ROIs and you can win like 30% of the time, like I showed before, it might be better for you. Like a 90%, like if attackers are winning 90% of all caravan runs, let's like run through this example that I did before. And guys, tell me if I'm wrong, but in a randomized 15v15, if you randomize 15 players, in Vera versus another 15 players, one side's going to win about half the time. Like there'll be good players, there'll be bad players. The minute you start getting higher win rates on one side, like if attackers are more incentivized, that means you just have more people attacking these caravans. And so the thing that I stipulated is if you have 15 defenders versus 30 attackers at an 80% win rate, a 90% win rate might be like 35 attackers. Like if you're winning 90% of the time versus all caravans, you probably have like 35 attackers per caravan in this situation. And so um, then it's like, okay, yeah, you're winning a lot, but you have way more people to split what you're taking. And so that's 2,500 split 35 different ways. And so it's just interesting conversations. Like, yeah, sure, you're winning more, but your return on investments are already cut in half, and you're starting from here. And so that's the fun thing to kind of talk about and try to figure out, I guess. And yeah, these are obviously not exact numbers, but it's, yeah, randomized players. One side's going to win half the time and one side's going to lose half the time. And so we know, like, Caravan plus defenders, like, you're going to need a lot more attackers to win at a much higher win rate. Like, much higher win rate. But yeah, this could be 25, this could be 35, it could be 40. We don't know how powerful the Caravan is exactly. But all we know from the Caravan is it took them a long time of it sitting still, using none of its abilities to get sacked. So we go back here real quick. We see the attacks the attacks are attacking, and we see the defenders are staying in the area. The Caravan stops. Like, I want to keep stipulating that, like, highlighting that they didn't run the Caravan. They weren't going fast. The entire thing was designed for them to take it. And yeah, in this situation where you're outnumbered, you might send the Caravan. You might just say, hey, get going. And you see later on when Steven runs Caravans, when you see the live stream on November where he runs the Caravan and they show the different systems, you're not just going to sit there like they did here. And so even in this outnumbered, what is it, like 36 v 16, this is not how defenders would defend in a 36 v 16. This is not how they go about doing things. It would honestly take even longer than what they showed here to attack this and get it flipped. But yeah, you see how long, like, how much damage this thing has. And it has defensive capabilities. Like, it has a lot of defensive capabilities, none of which are being fired right here. So this thing is just a goddamn unit. It's a freaking unit, and it's gonna take a while. Like, you see 30 plus people attacking this thing. It's still, there it goes. Finally, it's down. So yeah, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game on what the win rates are. But yeah, just because you're winning more doesn't mean that you're yielding more profit, is my point. Like, just because you're winning more doesn't mean you're yielding more profit. Pretty sure Caravan is being CC'd here. Okay. And that's fair too. But yeah, it's one of those, like, when you see people piling off a cliff, like a lot of people like that, you're also not just going to sit there either. But yeah, maybe at the end it was CC'd. That's fine. That's fine. What else? Am I missing anything? Let me think about this. I'm missing a lot. I know I'm missing a lot. Oh, yeah. So win rates. Let's talk about win rates. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the ROI they provide, right? If they provide a very steep ROI like they showed, what was the picture? Did I unlink it? I bet I did. Like, this to me, when I first saw this, and shout out to Rive once again for showing this, but an 8x on salt cured meat for the trip from Winstead to Miralith, and then like a little over a 6x for the Everburn scented candles. When I saw this ROI, I was like, man, they are really incentivizing people to attack. Like, the higher this ROI system goes on these short runs, the more incentive you're providing defenders to send these things out, because the alternative is silly. Like, why would, like, if you're successful 100% of the time, or even 50% of the time, it's way more profitable in these situations. Like I said, you only need to be right 12.5% of the time on an 8x. You only need to win 12.5% of the time to break even. The minute you start winning 15% of the time or 20% of the time, 1 in 5, 1 out of 5 times that you win, you get way more. And so you're going to be unhappy as a defender because you're like, man, I'm losing. I'm losing 4 out of 5 caravan shipments. This is awful. I'm garbage. But it's better than dropping it off at home. It's way better. And that's the interesting aspect. So if you're a defender and you get smart and you increase your win rate to like 40%, or you even get to like 50% where you're only winning half the time, that could be way more profit than an attacker. And so even if you're winning like 40% of the time or 50% of the time, depending on how these ROIs work, because you have less people and because you start off with everything, even though you're spending more hours doing these things in the hypothetical situation, it very well could be more profitable to do so. And so that's going to be the fun ebb and flow, is people figuring this out, like figuring out like, man, I'm spending hours in this area trying to attack these caravans and nothing's happening. Like, I'm not a very good attacker. I would be way better off having my guild basically go, hey, Winstead Caravan guys, do you guys have anybody that you guys need a shipment of resources to Miraleth? We're going to go here. And then when you get to Miraleth, you can then go, we'll pull up the map with our silly little pen, but you could have a designated caravan running group where you go from Winstead to Miraleth, and then you hopefully find a group here where they'll give you resources to transport to the next area, and then maybe to the next area, and to the next area, and then home. And so then in those situations, like you have was this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is a 6-hour player loop. So maybe this is a couple days for some people, but you can have these types of deals set up as a PvPers where you're like, hey, I'm not affiliated to any of your nodes. I'm just good at doing this. I'm going to yield you more gold doing so, being a defender. You just give me the resources to constantly transport this loop, and I will go back and forth between these, and I will reap you more gold, and it will reap me more gold. And people are going to see this, and they're going to see these guilds, like defending guilds, and they go, these guys are making a shit ton of money. They're sending 15 players. Let's go send 40. Like, we know what time they're hopping on. We know what time that they're sending their shipments. We have spies in this area. We're going to start denting the system because they're making way better profits than anybody else is. And we need to start cracking into this, because this guild that's providing all this gold is then returning it here, and this node is growing faster. And we need to do something about this. So if we want to stop this node, we need to stop this group from reaping so many profits. And so you're going to have this cat and mouse game. So as a defender, there will be times where I'll be making a shit ton of gold, and then people are going to try to do something about it, and vice versa. But yeah, this may be the most nerdy live stream I've ever done. You just have to also consider the increased danger by traveling 4 times the distance. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm talking like, this is a 20-minute run. And so you farm this for 20 minutes one day. And then somebody in Miraleth that says, hey, I want you to take my caravan shipment up here. And this is another 20, 30-minute run. And you can do that the next day. And then this is a 20 or 30-minute run. And then this one is as well. And so you just do one at a time. And you basically like send my group out. We see nobody in the area that's a threat. We run our caravan, and then we scout in the area. There's 100 people over here. We're not going to send our caravan. We're going to wait till the next day. We're just going to do other parts of our progression. We're going to go around. We're going to find fights, or maybe we're going to go farm stuff for artisan ships, or maybe we go back and we duel, or whatever we want to do. Like we just do other things besides running caravans. And then later on, we then scout the area, and we see 20 people. Okay, well, we're 15 people. We think we could take on 20. We're gonna send the caravan. And it's not always going to be successful. It's not that easy. Like the 15 people could be a trap. And they like what somebody said earlier, they may have families to where people can fast travel in and teleport immediately to somebody in the family. And that 15 turns into 50. And then we just got absolutely raided and we got destroyed, but we only need to win half the time. So as long as we win this one, and even if we lose this one, that's way better than just the profit staying at home. But I think people are going to be very upset about win percentage, and they're not really going to think so much about ROI. And that's the interesting part, because if you really incentivize the attacker and allow the attacker to potentially take free resources, and you provide insane ROIs like they're doing, they're basically saying like, yeah, you're not going to win. You're not going to win a shit ton of your caravan runs. You're going to lose more. You're going to lose a lot, like half the time. That's going to create a lot of drama. Time is appreciated. Well, yeah, I like talking about it. I've thought about doing a video on this. I just don't know if I can. Like, I really don't think we have enough information to talk about it. And I wish, like, every time I've had a conversation with somebody that disagrees with me, disagrees with my point of view, I wish I could try to explain this. But like yesterday in the 6v6 or the 3v3 podcast where we had 3 different debaters, I've taken an hour and 20 minutes talking about this on the live stream, right? To try and get this point across. We would have been talking for like 8 hours yesterday if I just tried to prove this point. And so it's tough. It's tough. There's so many variables. People could go, hey, what if you stab more people? What if you do this? What if you do this? What about if caravan cost is way higher? The higher the caravan cost is, the more ROI you would need. And so all of these are hypotheticals. It's just a hypothetical example to show you that you can lose a lot and you'd still be inclined to run caravans. And because of that, you'll have people attacking caravans. And because you have a system, and that's what you want. You want people incentivized to do both. And if Intrepid incentivizes attackers to attack more, like what they're showing here, that means you're going to have so much political drama and potential turnover. And that's the exciting part is like, you want to engage. Like, I don't want to engage in caravan defense where I travel around and I win 80% of the time. Like, yeah, sure, I'll make a lot of gold doing it, and that'd be great. But at the same time, I don't want that to be then a part of my main player loop. If I'm winning 4 out of 5 times and I'm not running across fights and I'm just winning and winning and winning, how freaking boring would that be? How boring would that be where you just never run across a fight, run across a competitor, run across a group of people that could give you a fight? Like, that would suck. And then I would reconsider running caravans. If I'm winning too much, and then I would go, wow, I'm winning way too much. There's probably a bunch of other people out here winning way too much. Maybe we need to figure something out and do something about this. And then we have this ebb and flow system. Okay. I think that might be it. I think that might be it. Freaking 49ers, man. We literally just don't know enough. Everything is theory right now. Yeah. Yeah. And there was a guy, I forget who it was. It was Sonic something on the Discord. And he's like, hey, here's math that I showed. And he very elaborate and well drawn out point of view. And like, it looked right to me. I didn't fully look at it. Looked right. But he's like, yeah, in this situation, like, why would you run caravans? The caravan cost is too high. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. The thing is in this entire discussion, if you have, sorry, we're not going to use my pen to my mouse to draw these things, but if the caravan cost, if the caravans cost too much to build and they're getting destroyed that much, or if the ROI isn't there, and people can just turn in gold more safely and not risk these things, they're not going to engage in the system. And so the minute one of those two things happen, people will not do caravan runs. Even me that wants to partake in caravans, if I'm making more gold because I'm not, like there's times where your cost to build these caravans might be too high, or you're losing 95% of the time, hypothetically, like those unfun systems where nobody sends caravans out because literally nobody can win doing it. In those situations, yeah, you could send them at home. Like, why would you make this risk? And so then all of a sudden you have a dead system, and dead systems are just, that's not a fun thing to engage in. And so what I even told him, I was like, yeah, you very well could be right. The caravan cost may be too high. And in that case, Intrepid will have to go in and make the cost of supplies lower for caravans, because if nobody's engaging in the system, it's a dead system. And so you need to make it profitable for both sides. You need to basically tell people that, like, hey, if you're a farmer, and just about everybody will be, you make more gold running caravan runs. Boom. Everybody will run caravans. You may attack more because attacking is more profitable in those situations. But at some point with your resources, you will have to send them. And then, and in that situation, you then have your attacker ROI and you have your defender ROI. And they're two very different things. But they both exist, and they both exist in the same vein. But yeah, that very well could be the case. And ROI could go lower, and, you know, maybe the Caravan isn't as impactful as I think it is. And another example that was brought up on here as well is people were like, hey, what if PvPers are better? What if PvPers are attacking more? And so maybe this 15v30 that I'm talking about, maybe then drops down to 15v20. And so because the attackers are more veteran players, they're just better players than defenders. So if we have 15 defenders and they're, you know, non-PvPers in this situation, you have 15 attackers that this is what they love to do, and that this is the system that they love to engage in. I think we can all agree that somebody that really loves to play in a system will overall on average be better. You could see a situation to where PvPers even in these even fights, maybe they win like 75% of the time, right? And so when you have these sorts of situations where maybe it's skewed heavier for PvPers to attack, maybe these numbers lower. And so maybe you only need 20 attackers for an 80% win rate. And then in this situation, you have a lot less attackers and you're splitting more gold and your ROI is higher. But as a defender, you're still inclined to send caravans if you're not successful. But if you're sending out 15 defenders, you either need to send out more defenders to counteract the attackers, or you need to send out better defenders. And if you're not sending out better defenders, then you're not making enough gold. And the other example, like the example I showed Friday in my video, is I said, this will be the last thing, but I said the video that, make sure I have this set up. There we go. So I said in the video that with the example I provided, attackers were making 1K more gold, or sorry, attackers, I'm sorry. A PvB oriented Caravan defense was making 1K more gold per transport than PvEers. And the example I provided was, hey, you guys split this 50-50. Okay. So the attackers get 500, the defenders get 500. The thing is you don't have to get 500 and 500 for it to still be profitable. And so I did the break even point. I said, hey, PvPers, you get 500, PvEers, you get 500. You spent all this time. We'll split it equally because we're both the same amount of players. You're 15 farmers, we're 15 defenders of your caravan. Like we'll split this equally. But if you're trying to incentivize, like if you want to make gold more than everybody else, maybe the PvEers, where they see this 1K system, they go, hey, everybody's paying you guys 500. Maybe we pay you guys 700. We're still making 300 more gold per transport. Like if we give you 70%, we're still making 300 more gold than we would if we turned it in at home. We're still making more gold. Like even if we gave you 90%, we're still making 100 more gold, right? Like if you have to incentivize that far, there's nothing saying you have to do a 50-50 even split of this extra 1K gold in this example. You could very well say, hey, like we're going to pay you for your time. We want to make all this gold. We're making in all these resources. We need this transported successfully. We'll give you 80%. We'll give you 800. And then you get 200 more per transport. So over the 5 transports that I was showing, you're making an extra 1,000 gold. So over the 200 transport, over 5 of them, you're making an extra 1,000 gold per 5 transports. That's 1,000 more gold than you would make otherwise. And so even if you give them 80%, you're still making more. And you're showing like PvPers are incentivized to PvP and PvEers are incentivized because they're still making more gold. And this is the coolest part about the system, guys. Like this is the thing that I get so excited about talking about, because a lot of players in the PvE systems, if you're a blacksmith, if you're a weaponsmith or whatever, the minute you get to a high-end area, especially like a New World, I pay people for their time to make gear. like if I want specific things, if I don't have the capability of doing that myself. I pay them for their time and effort because they're a master crafter. They spent a lot of time doing these things. I am not. As a player that enjoys PvP, I then potentially reap rewards for being good at what I'm doing. The better I'm at, the higher my win rate is, the more people are going to want to give me of this pie because they're also making more gold than they would otherwise. And that's the cool idea, is like, finally in this type of game, everybody that wants to enjoy their own favorite player loops get to enjoy them without dipping into other things. Like as a player that likes the PvP in other games, I often have to go do trials or dungeons, and I like them, but I don't want to spend that many hours doing those things. If I had a choice, I would rather do other things. And if I have an opportunity to partake in the things that I want to do more, and this game is potentially incentivizing that, that's awesome. That's awesome. Had an idea when I saw the last video. Imagine a profession specialized in create, fix, and improve caravans and boats. When people with that profession are in the defend team, they can build and fix the caravan faster. That's a cool idea. That's a really cool idea. Yeah, maybe that's like in the defender caravan tree, hypothetically, or as an example. That's a cool idea. Welcome in, Bazoom. Good to see you. But yeah, it's crazy that we potentially have a game that rewards literally everybody for being good at whatever individual thing they want to do. Sounds kind of awesome to me. It sounds awesome to me. So, and yeah, that's the thing is you're in this hypothetical situation that I talked about on Friday. If you're a PvEer and you hate PvP, you do not have to participate in PvP to profit in a PvP system. Like, you don't have to play to utilize the system. You can literally just work together. And this is something I said in my Discord. The players that work together with the largest, most diverse group of other players are the ones that are going to win in this game, in my opinion. And I could be wrong. Like, we're years out from this game going live, but the people that work together, the people that aren't that like you, and we have it on both sides of this PvE versus PvP debate, right? You have PvPers that are like, I only want to work and play with PvPers. I hate freaking Care Bears, whatever. I'm doing the hypothetical stereotypical example here. I hate PvEers because they're Care Bears. They don't play in my systems. Like, we have nothing in common. We're not doing this. And PvEers, the example I've seen is, apparently to us, like, PvEers view PvPers as fucking psychopaths. They're psychopaths. They're fucking assholes. They're gankers. They're griefers. Like, evil, terrible people that just literally they reap, profits off of you being miserable. And so people split down the aisle. But if people look at this and say, hey, like, for me, I'm going to need people to craft shit for me. I'm going to need people to make stuff because I'm not going to, like, I'd rather play in the PvP loops. That's what I want to get good at. And so if you can develop those relations with people that enjoy doing those other loops at a high level, you're going to come out way further ahead than anybody else. And so this entire, like, stereotypical mindset of PvEers versus PvPers, you're falling behind. You're going to fall behind, like, way far behind on either side, in my opinion. And it's all theory, and I very well could be wrong. Like, systems could be messed up or whatever, but that's how I see it. And these little edges matter. The little edges, like an extra 200 gold, 20% more gold, or whatever. Like, those things add up over time. That's more gold than somebody else would get. And yeah, the more you optimize these things, and players optimize the shit out of all these systems, that's exactly what's going to happen. And so, yeah, it's okay to dislike PvP. It's okay to dislike chopping down trees. It's okay to dislike, owning a freeholder. You don't want to own one of those things. You want to deal with the stress. Like, it's okay to not participate in every single player loop, but everything's intertwined. And in this system, they have farmers and crafters, farmers and gatherers integrated with PvPers all in the same type of loop. And that's really cool that, everybody's in it together, even if you like things separately. Sorry about that. But yeah, I think that's it. I wanted to get the numbers out here because I think it's better for me to do this on a live stream by myself than do this like on a Voices of Vera podcast. Like I think I would put Nice to sleep if I went on an hour and a half long conversation about different numbers. But now that we have like an idea of where this lays out, those that are interested, like this stands on its own, and we can bring it up on another podcast. We can kind of talk about different variables in different situations. But yeah, if you're showing up to this at a later date, please provide any input you can. I would love to try to attempt to condense this to a 10 to 15 to 20 minute video in the future to kind of highlight things. I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I can cut all this down because it's just so many variables. And so you get hyper specific, and then people don't watch your full video, and then they go, yeah, but what about this? What about this? What about this? Did you think about this? And it's like, yeah, I know, but I'm on YouTube and I'm doing a numbers video on YouTube. I'm already in the no-go zone, basically. Thanks for the discussion. Yeah, no, thanks for participating, and thanks for providing different perspective. Because yeah, it'd be fun to what do we talk about? Because you're the one that brought Will. You're the one that brought up the attack. Okay, so PvPers potentially being more attackers. So let's provide that example. We'll do that one last thing, and then we'll call it a day. But yeah, so let's say it only takes 20. We're bouncing all over the place. Let's say for an 80% win rate, attackers are more PvPers than PvEers are. So you have 15 defenders and 20 attackers. In that situation, you're winning 80% of the time because you're just way better players. You're just waffle crushing everybody. So you have 2,500 divided by 20 attackers, and you're making 125 gold per caravan loop. And so what does this mean? In order to break even off the hypothetical example, you need to find one of these, what is it, every 4 hours, roughly? Yeah. So in order to break even with the profits of a defender, in this situation with 20 attackers, you need to find a caravan, attack it, call up your own caravan, and then transport all of the resources that are in there, uncracked crates, in a 4-hour period. I think some of these fights on some of these things, they will go on for a while. I think some of the bigger ones in this 20v15 situation, I think the time to kill will be, it could be a 5-10 minute. I could see it being like a 10-minute fight, depending on how it plays out, depending on how good the caravan is and everything. Like this could take a while. But yeah, as long as you can find and sack one of these every 4 hours, you're doing well. 4 hours or less. If people are seeing you and they're constantly sending, and you're finding these every 2 hours, like you're just reaping rewards, and you should keep attacking those areas. Eventually, these people will get smart after losing so much. Like eventually. And I don't know how long that's going to take, but like people either stop sending resources and they send them at home, but at some point you're going to be stuck there for hours and you're not going to get anything because they want you to be bored. And so they're going to get smarter and wiser is my point. So yeah, all these variables into play, like all these different things could happen, and we don't know. we just don't know. So hopefully that's discussing attacker risk and potential investment and everything. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, and this is what I think we know. Yeah, I'm going to end it here. I hope you guys had a good day. I'll probably live stream again tomorrow night. We'll talk about something else, maybe, unless you guys want to talk about caravans again. We could absolutely talk about caravans again. We could talk about other parts of the system. We could talk about Valentine's Day coming up. We could talk about a bunch of other things. And then, yeah, Voices of Era will be on Tuesday with Nice. And we have a few topics to talk about already that we've kind of been curating over the weekend. So hope to catch you either tomorrow or Tuesday. And then, yeah, I got to figure out what my next video I want to do for YouTube is. So I'm going to end this conversation here. Thanks for stopping in, guys. This was very short notice. I just kind of wanted to work this out and have discussions. And you guys did exactly what I thought you would do. You would fill in the blanks on things that I was missing, and that was huge. That it really was. And so I'll probably do more videos like this as they come up, because it's nice to be peer reviewed as it's happening. So yeah, I will catch you guys tomorrow night. Take it easy. Have a good one.